My name is Hazel Cooper. I'm 34 years old, and until a few weeks ago, I believed my life was stable in the way that mattered. Not perfect, but structured, predictable, earned. I work as a transit maintenance technician in northern New Jersey. Most of my shifts are early mornings or late nights inside rail yards, checking electrical systems and brake equipment on commuter trains. It's steady work, quiet work, the kind where things either function correctly or they don't. I've always liked that kind of clarity. I rent a small apartment in Jersey City. My routine is simple: work, gym, groceries, then home. No chaos, no surprises. I don't need them. Marcus Rivera is 29, my boyfriend. He works as a dental assistant at a private clinic. Confident, social, the kind of man who can walk into any room and immediately start a conversation with strangers like he's known them for years. We had been together a little over 3 years when everything changed. For the last year, he had basically been living at my place. Not officially. The lease is still only in my name, but his clothes were in my closet, his shoes by the door, his routines woven into mine. Marcus always said I was too predictable. He liked louder places, busy restaurants, weekend trips, posting everything online. Sometimes he would joke that dating me felt like dating a spreadsheet. I used to smile when he said that, because I thought it was just a difference in personality, not a judgment. There's one detail that matters more than anything else. My grandfather passed away last year. He left me an inheritance. Nothing life-changing in a dramatic way, but enough to matter. Enough for a down payment on a small house somewhere outside the city. The legal process had been slow. Paperwork delays, back and forth with the estate. It wasn't a secret. I mentioned it casually a few times because people kept asking. Marcus knew about it. He even knew roughly the amount. At the time, I thought we were talking about our future. Now I understand we were talking about something else entirely. Up until that Tuesday night, nothing felt obviously wrong. There were small things. Marcus asking more often when the paperwork would be finalized. Marcus joking about how life would change once the money came in. Marcus pushing me to estimate timelines I didn't actually control. I told myself it was normal. Excitement. Planning. The kind of conversations couples have when they're building something together. That night, Marcus fell asleep on the couch. His phone was still in his hand. The room was quiet except for the low hum of the refrigerator. Then the screen lit up. A message notification from a name I recognized immediately. Vanessa, his ex-girlfriend. I normally don't go through anyone's phone. Not his, not anyone's. But the preview text, it mentioned my inheritance. That's what made me stop. I picked up the phone, unlocked it, opened the conversation, and in about 30 seconds, everything I thought I understood about my relationship shifted into something much simpler. I didn't read everything at first. I didn't need to. The most recent message was from Marcus. I'm just waiting until she gets the inheritance. Then I'll finally leave this boring setup and be with you. I read it once, then again, then a third time. Like repetition might somehow change the meaning. Vanessa replied with laughing emojis. Good plan. Any idea how much she's getting yet? Marcus answered almost immediately. She has no clue what's really going on. She's predictable, easy to manage. I've already stayed this long. Waiting a little longer doesn't matter. I locked the phone, set it back in his hand, and just sat there. It's strange what your brain does in moments like that. There wasn't anger, not the explosive kind. It felt more like a switch, something clicking into place. 3 years of small moments suddenly rearranging themselves into a pattern that made a lot more sense. The questions about the inheritance, the timing, the jokes, the patience. It wasn't patience. It was calculation. I looked over at him, still asleep, completely relaxed, like nothing had changed. I could have woken him up, confronted him, turned it into a loud, messy argument. But the more I thought about it, the less interested I was in hearing excuses, because the situation had already explained itself. If his entire plan depended on waiting for that money, then I didn't need a confrontation. I needed to remove the condition. That was the moment the idea formed. Not all at once, but clearly enough that I couldn't ignore it. If the inheritance disappeared, what would he do? The next morning, I went to work like nothing had happened. Same routine, same rail yard, same checklist of systems that either worked or didn't. But my head wasn't on the trains. It kept circling back to one sentence. Predictable, easy to manage. I replayed it over and over, not because it hurt, but because it simplified everything. If Marcus was staying because of the inheritance, then removing that expectation would do something very specific. It would remove me from his plan. And whatever he did next would be honest. I didn't need a complicated setup. I just needed something believable. Around lunchtime, I opened my laptop in the break room and started typing. I copied the structure of an official notice: formal language, reference numbers, dense paragraphs that most people wouldn't read too closely. The idea was simple: a tax investigation tied to the estate, funds frozen, processing delayed indefinitely. No timeline, no guarantees. I kept it short, convincing enough to feel real. When my shift ended, I went home. Marcus was already there, sitting at the kitchen counter, scrolling through his phone. He was talking about something that happened at the clinic, a patient arguing about a bill. He sounded annoyed, animated, completely normal. He smiled when he saw me. No hesitation, no tension. If anything, he was in a good mood. That alone confirmed something for me. He had no idea. I listened, nodded, responded the way I always did. Then later that night, after he went to shower, I printed the document, folded it once, left it on my desk where it would be impossible to miss. I didn't mention it, didn't hint at it, just placed it there, and went to bed. The next morning I left before he woke up. Same as usual. That part of my life didn't change. But I expected something different when I came home. A conversation, concern, questions. What I got instead was silence. The apartment felt off the second I walked in. Not loud, not dramatic, just colder. Marcus was sitting on the couch, arms crossed, phone in his hand. He glanced up when I entered, then looked back down like he wasn't that interested. Normally, he would start talking immediately. Complain about work, tell me something random, ask what I wanted for dinner. That day, he just said, "Hey," flat, neutral. I looked toward my desk. The paper was gone, so he had seen it. I set my bag down slowly. "Everything okay?" I asked. He shrugged. Just tired." The tone didn't match the words. Then he asked casually, too casually, "Did you hear anything new about the inheritance stuff?" There it was. I kept my expression neutral. "No," I said. "Actually, I found this weird letter on my desk this morning. Something about the estate being under review. IRS or something." I let a small pause sit there, like I was still processing it myself. "It's probably just paperwork delays," I added. "You know how that stuff is." Marcus didn't respond right away. He leaned back slightly, then leaned forward again. "How serious is it?" I shrugged. "I don't know. It mentioned discrepancies. Could take months, maybe longer." That answer landed. I saw it, not in what he said, but in what he didn't. No concern. "No, are you okay?" "No, that sounds stressful. Just calculation." "How long is a longer?" he asked. "I honestly have no idea," I said. "Government stuff can drag out for years sometimes." That was the moment something shifted. Subtle, but immediate. The rest of the evening felt different. Marcus barely spoke. He spent most of the night in the bedroom, on his phone. At one point, I heard his voice. Low, quiet, controlled. He was on a call. I didn't need to hear the words to know who it was. "Vanessa." I sat in the living room, TV on. Not watching, just listening to the silence between sounds. That night, we went to bed without much conversation. No argument. No tension that could be named. Just distance. But the real change came the next morning. I woke up early for my shift. Marcus was already awake, sitting at the kitchen table, hands folded, expression serious, like he had been waiting. "We need to talk," he said. The sentence was calm, prepared. I sat down across from him. "Okay." He took a breath. "I've been thinking a lot about us lately." I didn't interrupt. "I feel like things have become kind of stale." The word hung there. Familiar. "We're just very different people," he continued. "And I don't know if this is really healthy long term." It was almost impressive. The delivery. Clean, structured, thought out. Like a speech he had rehearsed. Less than 24 hours ago, everything had been normal. Now suddenly it was clarity. I watched him carefully, not for what he was saying, but for how easily it came. "I think I need something different," he said. "More excitement, more unpredictability." There it was again. Predictable. The same word, the same framing, the same logic he used with Vanessa. I nodded slowly. Let him finish. He explained how we had grown apart, how the routine wasn't working for him anymore, how it would be better to separate now, before things got more complicated. 3 years, reduced to 15 minutes. I asked a few questions, not because I needed answers, but because I wanted to hear how he would say them. "Did something specific happen?" I asked. "No," he said immediately. "Is there someone else?" He looked almost offended. "No, of course not." The denial was clean, confident, almost convincing, if I hadn't already known. Then he said something else. "I think it's better if we make this quick, clean, no dragging things out." That part was honest, just not in the way he thought. I leaned back slightly, looked at him, and for a moment, I felt nothing. No anger, no urge to argue. Just confirmation. Okay, I said. He blinked. Okay? If that's how you feel, I said calmly, then there's no point forcing it. I think he expected resistance, emotion, something to push against. But there was nothing there, just acceptance. When do you want to move your things? I asked. He hesitated for a second, then said he could stay with a friend. He started packing that same afternoon. By the next day, most of his things were gone. The apartment felt different after that. Quieter, cleaner, like something unnecessary had been removed. And the strangest part was how easy it all was. No arguments, no confusion, just a very clear outcome. The moment the money disappeared, the first few days after Marcus left were quiet. Not in a heavy way. Not in the kind of silence that feels like something is missing. Just quiet. Like everything had returned to its original state. Work, gym, groceries, home, the same routine. Only now, there was no one sitting on the couch when I walked in. No background noise from his phone. No commentary about my day. And I didn't miss it. That was the part that surprised me. I kept expecting some delayed emotional reaction. Anger, sadness, regret. But none of it showed up. Because the moment I read those messages, whatever version of the relationship I believed in had already ended. What came after was just logistics. About a week later, something else changed. The inheritance finally came through. No delays. No investigation. No complications. Just a confirmation email and a finalized transfer. The amount was exactly what I had expected. Enough for a down payment. Enough to move forward. So I did. I started looking at houses that same week. Nothing extravagant. Just something solid, quiet, practical. 3 weeks later, I closed on a place in a small neighborhood just outside the city. A modest house. 2 bedrooms, small yard, garage. The kind of place that made sense. The kind of place I could build something real in. The day I got the keys, I stood in the empty living room for a minute, just looking around. No noise. No opinions. No one else's expectations. Just space. Later that evening, I posted a photo on Instagram. Nothing dramatic, just the front of the house. The keys in my hand. Caption, finally home. I didn't tag anyone. Didn't add context. Didn't need to. The reaction came faster than I expected. Less than an hour later, I saw his name. Marcus viewed the story. I almost laughed. Not because it was funny, but because it felt predictable. A few minutes passed. Then my phone vibrated. A message. Wait, you bought a house? I didn't respond. Another message. I thought you said the inheritance was tied up. That one almost made me smile. Because technically, I never said anything directly. I just let him believe what he wanted to believe. More messages followed. Questions. Confusion. A shift in tone. When did everything get resolved? Why didn't you tell me? How long were you planning this? I read them. Didn't answer. Then the calls started. First one. Ignored. Second one. Ignored. Third one. Still ignored. About 20 minutes later, the messages changed. I've been thinking about us, and maybe we rush things. Relationships go through phases. We should talk like adults. I stared at the screen for a second. 3 weeks. No messages. No check-ins. No concern. And now, suddenly, urgency. He called again. And again. 4 more times that night. The last voicemail sounded different. Less confident. More anxious. Hazel, I think there has been a misunderstanding. Can we just meet and talk? I was sitting in my new living room. Boxes still half unpacked. The house quiet around me. And all I could think was, nothing had been misunderstood. Everything had been exactly as clear as it needed to be. I didn't block him right away. Not yet. I just let the phone sit there, buzzing. Then eventually I picked it up, opened his contact, and blocked him. Calls stopped instantly. Messages disappeared. Silence returned. That should have been the end of it. And for a few days, it was, until something else showed up. A message request from an account I didn't recognize at first. But the name, familiar. Vanessa, Marcus's ex. I almost ignored it. Almost. But curiosity won. I opened the message. It started strangely formal. I think it would be better if we talked woman to woman about what happened. I read that twice, then kept going. She said there were misunderstandings. That she didn't want unnecessary drama. That Marcus was really upset. I stared at the screen for a moment. 3 weeks earlier, they were laughing, planning, waiting. And now, another message came through. Hazel feels like you misled him about the IRS situation. That one made me laugh. Out loud. Because the logic was almost impressive. I hadn't told Marcus anything. I left a piece of paper on a desk. He made decisions based on what he believed. Just like he had been doing the entire relationship. Vanessa kept going. He said things might have been different if he knew the truth. I read that line slowly. Let it settle. Because it said everything. If he knew the money was there, he might have stayed. That was the argument. That was the defense. And somehow, they thought that made it better. I considered replying, not to argue, just to point out the obvious. But the more I looked at the messages, the more unnecessary it felt. So I did the same thing. Blocked her. 2 taps. And just like that, the noise disappeared again. After that, things went quiet. Really quiet. Weeks passed. I finished unpacking, set up the furniture, organized the garage, built a routine that didn't include anyone else. Owning a house felt different than renting. More permanent. More intentional. Like every decision actually mattered. And for the first time in a long time, everything made sense again. Until one afternoon, when a car slowed down in front of my house. I was in the yard, trimming overgrown bushes near the driveway. At first, I didn't think much of it. People drive slowly through neighborhoods all the time. But then the car stopped, and the door opened, and Marcus stepped out. For a second, I just stood there, hands still on the hedge trimmer. Watching him close the car door like this was a completely normal visit. Like he hadn't disappeared from my life 3 weeks earlier without hesitation. Like he hadn't already made his decision. He looked different. Not physically, but in the way he carried himself. Less certain, more careful. He walked up the driveway slowly, like he was giving me time to react. I didn't move, didn't wave, just waited. Hazel, he said, stopping a few feet away. There was a pause, long enough that he had to fill it. I've been thinking a lot about everything. Of course you have. I didn't say it. Just let him continue. I think I made a mistake. There it was. Simple, direct, clean. He took another step closer. The last few weeks have been hard, he added. I've had time to think. About us. About what we had. His voice was steady, rehearsed, like he had practiced this conversation on the drive over. I let stress get to me, he said. I was confused, and I think I rushed things. I leaned the trimmer against the side of the garage, crossed my arms, still didn't speak. He kept going. I never stopped caring about you, he said, not even after I left. That part almost sounded convincing. Almost. What we had, it mattered, he added, and I think maybe we gave up too quickly. There was a pause. He glanced at the house behind me, taking it in. The windows, the driveway, the space. It's a really nice place, he said. I didn't respond. He nodded slightly, like he expected that. Maybe this could be a fresh start, he continued, for both of us. There it was. Not subtle, not hidden, just repositioned. Like the past 3 weeks could be rewritten into something more convenient. A new place, new energy. We could do things differently this time. I looked at him for a moment, really looked. At the way his eyes kept drifting back to the house. At the way his tone shifted every time he mentioned us versus anything else. And then I finally spoke. This conversation isn't necessary. He blinked. What? It's already over, I said calmly. His expression tightened slightly. I know it ended, he said quickly. But that doesn't mean it can't. It ended the day you decided to leave, I interrupted. He paused, like he wasn't expecting that version of the story. You made that decision, I continued. Quickly, clearly. I respected it then. I still respect it now. Hazel, it wasn't that simple. It was, I said. Quiet. Flat. Certain. He ran a hand through his hair, frustration starting to show. You don't understand the full situation, he said. There were things going on, pressure, confusion. I shook my head slightly. No, I said. I understand it exactly. That stopped him. For a second. Just enough. Then I added, I saw the messages. Everything changed. Instantly, the color drained from his face. Not slowly, not subtly, just gone. What? He said. Between you and Vanessa, I said. The night you fell asleep on the couch. He stared at me, trying to calculate something. A response, a denial, anything. That's not, he started, then stopped, because we both knew it was pointless. How long? He asked quietly. How long did you know? Long enough, I said. Silence. Thick, heavy. Then his expression shifted, from shock to something sharper. So you set that up, he said. The IRS letter, that was fake. I didn't deny it. You manipulated the situation, he added. You made it look like the money was gone so I'd react. I tilted my head slightly. I didn't make you do anything, I said. That's not true. I gave you information, I cut in. You decided what to do with it. He exhaled hard. That's not fair, Hazel. You didn't tell me the truth. I didn't lie either. Another pause. Longer this time. If the relationship mattered to you, I said calmly, a delay in money wouldn't have changed anything. He didn't respond, because there wasn't a response to give. You didn't leave because of compatibility, I continued, or routine, or growth. I held his gaze. You left because the investment didn't look profitable anymore. That landed. Hard. His jaw tightened. That's not, he started again. But the words didn't come, because they couldn't. For a moment, neither of us spoke. Then he tried one last time. I made a mistake, he said. People make mistakes when they're uncertain. I nodded once. I agree. Hope flickered across his face. Just briefly. Then I finished the sentence. Leaving wasn't the mistake. That flicker disappeared. Thinking I'd still be here after you showed me exactly why you stayed, that was. Silence. He looked at the house again, then back at me, like he was trying to find a version of this conversation where it ended differently. But there wasn't one. After a few seconds, he nodded slowly. Not agreement. Just acknowledgement. Then he turned, walked back down the driveway, got into his car, and left. No dramatic ending. No final words. Just quiet. I stood there for a moment, then picked the trimmer back up and went back to cutting the hedge. Because in the end, nothing about my life had actually changed. Except now. Everything made sense.